Hello and welcome to a very special Saturday spirituality group sponsored by City Voices. We have a guest from the United Kingdom, Lorna Collins, who has a wonderful and inspiring, I hope I'm not putting pressure, but it is inspiring story to tell. She's a TED talker and a PhD. And without further ado, here's Lorna Collins.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Dan. It's the end of quite a long day for me, and I have to admit that I've done zero preparation for this. I'm just relying on the fact that I've done quite a lot of talks in my time, and I'm just going to wing it, all right? And I have it on good knowledge, which is myself, that when I wing it, it normally works out okay or satisfactorily, so that'll have to be okay. However, just a few preliminary thoughts. Firstly, if you have any questions or thoughts, why not put them in the chat so that we can come back to them when I finish my speaking bit, so you don't forget. And I do actually really like questions, so anything you might want to ask me or say, I'm very, very happy to respond in any way I can a bit later. Also, I might be talking about things that you might find quite difficult, such as although I won't be graphic or anything, but I might refer to self-harm or an eating disorder or attempting to take my own life or having difficult problems with my family and things like that, So that's just a little warning. That's the kind of thing that I might bring up. But don't need to panic or worry or anything. I'll be quite as sensitive as I can. We've all had hard times, and I'm hoping you might be able to relate to some of the things that I have experienced. So without further ado, where do I begin? Okay, so who am I? I don't know. And the reason why I don't know is because I'm still looking for the person that I am. When I was 18, which was 24 years ago, I was a brilliant young person. I was representing Great Britain on a horse. I went to my first international at the age of 13. I went to the European Championships and was placed in the top of Europe when I was 16. And then I was a jockey. My ambition to be the first woman to win the Grand National. Do you all know what the Grand National is? No? It is this massive steeplechase, this race for horses, and they jump these enormous fences and they go flat out. They go 30 miles an hour. And this is the biggest horse race in England. And I wanted to win that race. No woman had ever done it. Anyway, this was my aim. And I was a jockey. I was started racing, and I was on track to not only win racing but also go to the Olympics. And my name was up there in the International Forum for Horse Riding. So you think it's brilliant. And also I was very good at school. I had a place to study at Cambridge University. I was apparently I was very popular, which is quite surprising to me now, but anyway, apparently I was. And I was riding my racehorse, whose name was Paul, one day, and we were practicing, we were training, and one of his bandages on his legs came undone, and he tripped on it, and he fell over. The horse just fell over. And I, obviously, because I was riding the horse, I was transported through the air, and I landed on my head, flat out, crash landing, kaput, and I was unresponsive. I was dead. That was it, you kind of, wow. And my father was there. And he won't talk about this day now. He says he can't talk about it. And in hindsight, I now realize how awful it was for the people around me, my parents. Can you imagine your daughter being unresponsive? Anyway, on the day, he came over and he gave me the kiss of life. He called the ambulance. The ambulance airlifted me to hospital, and I was in a coma. Now, I don't remember any of this, okay? So I've just been told this, which is another reason why at the beginning I said I don't know who I am. I was in a coma. Apparently, when I was in a coma, my mother said she made a recording of all the animals on the farm where I lived. And she made a recording of the sounds they'd make, the dogs barking, the hens clucking, the horses neighing. And apparently, when I was in a coma, I would smile when I heard this recording. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is consciousness and what the power of music and sound, you know? So that's incredible to know. Obviously, I don't know that, but she tells me this in very vividly. Eventually, I did wake up from the coma, partially, but I had total amnesia. And that means that I forgot my entire identity. I had no memory of my previous life. I didn't know who my parents were. I didn't know who anyone was. I didn't recognize anyone. I couldn't put my shoes or socks on. I didn't know how to eat food. I Harvey said, "How long were you comatose?" You see, I don't know. That's really interesting you've asked me that, because you see, I don't know. People always, that's the first question people ask me: how long were you in a coma? And I don't know. Because as I said before, this is not something we talk about as a family, which is a very British thing. I don't know what British is like in America, but in my experience, if there's something very difficult and people are quite traditional, you just shut it down and don't talk about it. And I don't advocate that. I think that's not a great way of solving problems or dealing with things, but this is how it is. My parents are quite old, they're very traditional. That's how they deal with things. So no, I don't know how long I was in a coma, but I don't know. I mean, partially me thinks, well, if it was quite a short time, then people might think that it wasn't a very serious injury. Or if it was a long time, people might judge my injury on the time I was in a coma. That's my natural thought. The issue is that however long I was in a coma, I woke up with total amnesia and I forgot everything. And I had to rebuild my life like a blank canvas. Does anyone here paint? Is anyone here a bit intimidated by
Yes.
a white piece of paper or a blank canvas? What do you do with it? You know? Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I became a great painter after this. But anyway, at this moment, I had nothing and I had to start again. My spiritual journey, you know, I'm in a black hole, you know, a dark hole. All I can see is nothingness, you know. What do you do? And what I did was I became very depressed. I started hallucinating. Um I tried to control everything that I couldn't control. I had nothing that I could control in my life. So I thought, right, I'll just stop eating. Then I can control my weight. So I developed an eating disorder. I developed psychosis, as an organic psychosis. So the psychosis was caused by the brain injury. The injury to my brain um, gave me hallucinations. And so that was the cause of all the mental illnesses I developed. And there were numerous. They gave me so many labels over the year. At one point, they said treatment resistant schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, psychotic depression, organic psychotic disorder, organic hallucinosis, blah, blah, blah. You know, lots of personality disorders as well. And recently I've been given another diagnosis. This is like about a month ago, I was told that I now have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So if you think of any diagnosis you can think of, I've probably been given it anyway. And does that help? But that's part of my spiritual journey, though, because it does affect me having these diagnoses and the misunderstanding by the clinicians. So back to the story. So I began reacting in very destructive ways to my situation, and I was hospitalized within, within about 6 months of the brain injury, in an acute ward, um, in a psychiatric hospital. And I spent the next 20 years going in and out of psychiatric hospitals, um, as a revolving door patient. So I'd be admitted because I'd taken an overdose, or, you know, hurt myself very badly, or because I was very risky to my own self, really. And I was very, very unwell, clearly, you know. And then I'd be sort of locked up for a few months, and then they'd chuck me out again, no improvement. And then I would, you know, do some bad things, really, but there was no treatment, really. So how on earth could I, you know, recover? There wasn't such a thing as recovery. It wasn't available to me. I was admitted to a numerous eating disorder wards. At one point, they gave me ECT. Do you know what ECT is? It's electroconvulsive therapy. They basically shocked my newly damaged brain. You know, Sorry, I'm absolutely livid about that still, and I'm really sorry about that to express that now because I'm just so angry. Why did they do that? It made everything a lot worse, as you can imagine. You can just try and imagine that, shocking electric shocks to a brain that's already damaged. Now, if people here are actually have had ECT and it's worked for you, I don't take that against you at all. It can work for some people. So, and I'd love to hear your experiences, but I'm just saying for me, it was a very destructive thing to do. My treatment was a disaster for many years. At one point in my treatment, I was in London at this point, and I realized I didn't have a career. I didn't have an education because of the brain injury. So somehow or other, I found a course online. I thought, oh, I need to get a degree, don't I? Um, uh, as you do. So I went online and found a course at Greenwich University, which is a very basic university in London. It's quite pretty, but it's not very academic. But it's a great university to start with. So I went there, and I did. Can I just say this might sound slightly pretentious or arrogant. Okay, this is just a fact, right? So I don't want you to think that I'm being arrogant. But I don't mean to be arrogant. But I did an undergraduate degree in a year. And then I went to Cambridge to study. How did I do that? In the meantime, I was in and out of hospital. Now, how did I do that? People always say to me, how did you do that? And how did you do all these degrees and stuff? And you know what? I don't know. I'd really like to know because it would be nice to have that, wouldn't it? That knowledge. Anyway, so I went to Greenwich, did my undergraduate in a year, and my supervisor at Greenwich said to me, "You need to go to Oxford or Cambridge with this mind of yours." And I'm like, really? In the end, I got my application to Cambridge together in a week. Anyway, they gave me an interview, and because they thought I had this theory about schizophrenia and French philosophy and being a nothingness and all this. I had this brilliant theory. So I went to my interview and I told them my theory, and I told them I had lived experience of schizophrenia because at that time I think that was my diagnosis, and they were just completely bowled over. And they said, "Oh, how amazing. What a great original thinker you are." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, this is nice." Then they said, "Well, let's give you a test in French." Because I applied to study French philosophy. And I failed the test at the Cambridge interview. Failed it. I couldn't speak French, couldn't read or write French. I don't know why I was applying to do French philosophy. Anyway, I failed the test. But I said to them, I don't know where I got all this sort of, boldness, because I wasn't that bold. Anyway, I was suddenly really bold, and I said, "Okay, I failed the test. Sorry. I tell you what, if you accept me, I'll learn French over the summer before term starts." And they said, "Yes, all right then." So it worked. Anyway, I found myself at Cambridge, very, very unwell. Went to hospital again in Cambridge, which is even more of a disaster than London and all the other places I was at. Somehow managed to finish the Masters of Philosophy that I began with. Then went to hospital again. And I continued my brilliant idea that I thought I had. And they said I could do a PhD in that brilliant idea. The idea was called Making Sense. Making sense. My whole life has been about making sense. My PhD was called Making Sense. And it was about how art can help us make sense of ourselves and the world. And so they somehow supported me in my ideas and my research, and also my supervisor was very compassionate about my illness, and he was very supportive. But unfortunately, I was still very poorly and very underweight. I mean, about to die from malnutrition because I was had such a bad eating disorder, and the hallucinations were also chronic. So I spent a long time in hospital, but I still managed to finish the PhD because that's all I had at the time, really. I had my illness and my studies. And they were like, fighting against each other the whole time. But I, I don't know. I think the studies gave me something to live for or to try and fight the illness for, if you know what I mean. Because unfortunately, at the time, another factor in this complex story is that I had disowned my family. So I had no family, I had no next of kin. So when I went through all these hospital admissions, I had no next of kin. So it was just me in the hospital, and they tried to convince me to contact my parents, but I refused, outright refused. So if you can imagine, I was nearly dead many times, and that I didn't allow them to contact my parents. I don't know what the situation is in the US, whether the next of kin is a big deal or not. But in the UK, it's a power of attorney, the next of kin. Anyway, I had no next of kin. I was nearly dead in hospital many times. And then, but so all I had really was my illness or my studies, and I finished my studies. The most important thing of my studies was that making sense, art helps us make sense of ourselves and the world. And I had to prove that this by recovering from my illness. If I couldn't recover from my illness, I couldn't prove my thesis, my PhD thesis, you see. Now, I did prove my PhD thesis, but not at this time. It took me many years later before I finished my thesis, really. Obviously, I finished it, handed it in. I was passed, no corrections. I got my PhD. I graduated on leave from hospital, in a wheelchair. But I did that, but I hadn't yet proven my thesis in practical terms, only in theoretical terms. And I knew that, and it aggravated me. But the story continues. I went then to teach at the Sorbonne in Paris. The Sorbonne is like an ancient institution in Paris, a bit like Oxford or Cambridge, and I was a lecturer there for a while. But I must say, I have never been back to Paris. This was 2012, and I haven't been back to France since then because of what happened, which I can't actually say. But so let's just say I had a terrible time, beyond you can imagine. And I was again sectioned in Paris against my will and all this stuff. I'm not going to go into it because it's not nice at all. Anyway, I eventually got back to Cambridge from Paris. Eventually, somehow I got back to Cambridge. More treatment, blah, blah, blah. This horrible story goes on for a few more years. But in 2017, by this point, I had moved back to near my family, which is where I am now, near my family in the Green England, Buckinghamshire. Lovely. Still wasn't really very healthy by this point, but I'd kind of been through the wars and had come out of it a little bit. And I was fortunate enough to be under the NHS. So in England, we have the NHS, the National Health Service, and they have different sort of parts of the NHS depending on where you live. So the treatment centres change depending on where you live. And where I live, we had Oxford Health NHS. So that the local NHS was called Oxford Health. And they had a really good treatment centre, which I was able to access when I moved back here. So finally, in 2017, I was admitted to a good hospital. And finally, they linked together my brain injury with my psychiatric illnesses, my severe mental illnesses. And they gave me therapy, they gave me treatment, they diagnosed and they fixed everything, and they gave me the right medication. So I now take a lot of medication. And between you and me, actually, I'm quite vocal about this. So it's not between you and me, it's between me and the world and everyone. But anyway, I'm quite ambivalent about medication. I've always been ambivalent about it. And that means, although it saves me and allows me to function really well, I find it quite difficult to take my medication. And that is a symptom of my condition. My illness, tells me things like you shouldn't take your medication. Now, that's not me thinking, that's the illness thinking, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm now on medication that makes me the best possible version of myself. I've had a lot of therapy. I have worked new coping mechanisms that help me deal with my issues, my hallucinations, etc. I was discharged, my final discharge from psychiatric hospital was in 2018. So that means I've been out of hospital for 6 years, which is unheard of. I know it's incredible, isn't it? How did I manage that? I managed that because I finally found the help I needed to make my own recovery, because only I could make my own recovery, but I needed support and help to do that. And I've grown so much since my last admission. I'm challenging myself in new ways. Like I'm now doing triathlons. Where did that come from? No, I don't know. I still ride horses. I love riding horses. There's lots of pictures in my room, which I would love to show you, but I would waste time. um, I live with 2 dogs and a cat and a horse on a farm next to my where my family are. So I don't really get on with my family, but it's a lot better than it used to be. And I don't have to pay rent. But no, I'm happy. I am fulfilled. I now have a career. I'm making a film at the moment. This is what I've been doing all day. See, if I didn't today, the reason why I haven't done any preparation for this amazing talk and meeting you amazing people, it's not because of you, because obviously I very much appreciate talking to you, but it's because I'm making a big documentary film at the moment. And I spent 11 hours today filming, shooting 49 scenes. Is it 49 takes or 40? I don't really know the film language. Is anyone here expert on film? It's filmed 49 takes. I think that's it, isn't it? 49 takes in 11 hours. Exhausting. This is day 3 of a 4-day shoot. Yeah. So we're shooting a documentary film about me, my life, my story. And I have the camera crew, you see, come around to my house and just follow me around. But it's not as easy as that. They say, stop, start, action, rolling, stop, cut, and all this. And I'm like, anyway. So that's one thing I'm doing. I write a lot of books. I've written books about children's fiction, which are really funny. I've written poetry anthologies. I've written a memoir. I've just written a new part of the memoir. I've written books of dark humor for adults. I'm a copious writer. I've written many books, and not many of them have been published because I'm still waiting to find an agent who will take me on because I'm prolific. I can't stop. At one point during my admissions, one of the doctors said I had diacritia or something. I don't think of what it's called. Well, the word, I can't remember the word now, which is typical, which is really annoying. But there's a word used which is a symptom of psychiatric illness, which means you're addicted to writing. Anyway, that's what I have. But I'm also a painter, and I express myself creatively every day. I find actually that dictating what I can see in my hallucinations allows me to express myself and find some kind of relief from them. So I dictate what I can see around me if it's a hallucination, I mean, and then I turn it into a story, or I draw it, or I write about it, because the greatest power I think that creativity has for me is that if I'm talking about my hallucinations, if I make an artwork about them, it changes the level of reality that they exist on. So, for instance, I'm having a hallucination. So I might be, for instance, I can see something right now, because I'm having this conversation with you, but I can see the molecules of existence waving around in front of me. Now that's a hallucination, okay? Because you're not hallucination, but what I can see in front of the screen right now, okay? So I'm just letting you in on my world. So what I could do is draw what I can see, these molecules and the level of existence that I can see in my hallucinations. And when I draw it, it becomes not a subjective thing, but an objective thing, because it's in a drawing. So a drawing is an object. A drawing is a physical thing. Yeah. Whereas the experience is a subjective thing. It's my mind playing tricks with me, apparently. Does that make sense? That transition from an experience into a thing? Yeah. Do people? Yeah. Okay. Great. Sorry, it's just quite complicated. And then what I do with the drawing is I enjoy drawing. It's a calming distraction. It's a calming activity that helps me cope with my experiences. And then what I can do is I can, do some more coloring or add to it. And that process helps me process it. And I can, if I want to, show it to other people to help me get through it even more, So there's masses of plus points in being creative in relation to the hallucinations. And that's just one example of how art and creativity helps me. Okay. So just so kind of moving towards wrapping up now, because I'm on my 5.5 minutes, and I enjoy being precise, Dan. Yeah, so what I've done so far is I've told you quite a big story, quite a lot to say. And I hope that hasn't been too overwhelming for anyone. And please share if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, we can support you. I say we, I'm not really part of your we, I'm an invader, but I'm just pretending I am part of your we. Anyway, yeah, so lots going on in my life. My life now is better than it has ever been. I have no regrets about the head injury or the psychiatric illnesses that ensued from it, because it's made me a better, more compassionate and bigger person. I think I think it's important to embrace the darkness, and see it personally. I embrace it because it has helped me understand the world, and that helps me live in is inside it, however difficult it is, because it can be difficult. It's still difficult. I still have horrible hallucinations, and I have really big difficulties, but I'm managing. I know what I need to help me. Um, so Harvest is, are your hallucinations only visual? No, they're auditory as well, and they're also tactile. So sometimes I see, we'll get into questions in a little bit. I'm just adding this. I hear voices telling me to do things, and I hear the incredible sound and music. And I also feel people manipulating my brain. So that's not very nice, is it? Anyway, what else have I talked about? So I've shared with you a little bit about how art and creativity helped me in terms of my symptoms and how I experience my illness and my hallucinations in particular. Um, Also, art has helps me with just managing my emotions, really, just more generally, because I find, as I said before, drawing or painting or taking photographs or making a little video, I find that very calming. And when I draw or paint, I'm very bad at drawing or painting. Not very good at it. But that doesn't matter. The point is there's no um, judgment. And art is the antithesis of judgment. I've said that before, but I'm going to say it again. Not today, but in other talks. Anyway, and it's calming. And when I draw or paint, there are no thoughts. You see, like a clear, clean space, and that is incredibly powerful. And in that clear, clean space, I can simply be, and being is neutral or even compassionate or even peaceful when I am painting. And I think that is a very good way to open the questions. And there's some questions in the chat, but it was Tiffany, and the other person is Cecilia. Is it Cecilia who's going to do the manage the chat? So over to you, if that's all right. Is that all right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. It's so incredible to hear you speak and of the things you've been speaking about. It's so it's I would agree with you. You're quite prolific and I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
It's made such an impact on me. Yes, we can open the floor for any questions if anyone has any questions at this point. I know there were some
In the chat.
in the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kira's got her hand up.
Yeah.
Okay, Kira, please.
Hi. Yeah, if you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's sleeping in the other room. I thank you so, so much. It just was such a I don't know how, not a pleasure because it's not a, but it was just I don't know, just really great to hear
Thank
you
you.
speak. I just wrote down art is the antithesis of judgment. That's, really
Yeah. Do
important.
you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
completely, yes. And it's sort of a little similar to the question I have for you, which is um, like, I mean, this is something that I've been wondering and exploring for my own journey.
Yeah.
Is how much do you think of your feeling better has to do with actual changes in the physical parts of your brain, and how much do you think it has to do with sort of judging yourself less, less like the compound,
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
me, so yeah.
I think physically my brain is still damaged, so that's never going to change.
Right.
But also my recovery is dependent on my body being healthy, you know, because I was underweight, that drastically underweight for near sort of 19 years, so that fixed me to the illness, the being underweight. But now I would say my recovery is in sort of intertwining of physical and mental, and also judging myself. That's an ongoing quest, really, isn't it? You can never say that there is no judgment in the world or in yourself, because I personally think, I mean, I just definitely judge myself much less than I used to. But I think that's part of being human, really. Do you know what I mean? I think it's part of being human, the judgment thing. It's a bad thing and very difficult. I think it's reflected in the world we live in, which is very judgmental. So we can never get rid of it entirely. However, I do feel now that I'm physically healthy, although I have a damaged brain, which will always affect me, I'm much less judgmental about myself. So it's a kind of complicated situation, but I would say both of them are important, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Should we go? Should I just go for the people who got their hands up then? Should I? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Gail.
Oh yes, hello. I just want to
Hi.
thank you for everything. I just have two questions. When you do TED Talks or different talks, do you reach out to them or do they reach out to you? And
Okay, so
yes, and
I
do you ever
applied.
come to New York?
I applied to do a TED Talk,
Yes.
and they accepted me, but they had to have an interview, and it's quite long. It's quite a procedure, but I just applied. Yeah.
Oh, you applied. Okay. And that's great. And do you ever come to New York City, New York?
I've been once actually, because I organised a colloquium at the Met a few years ago.
Thank you.
So I just pushed that in. That sounds really arrogant. I don't want to be arrogant. It's true though. I did. It was called Making Sense. It was called Making Sense. I organised a series of colloquia around the world, one of which was at the Met. This was in 2014, probably. So I have been to New York, but not for a bit. Are you inviting me back? You give me an excuse.
Yeah, yes. I'll show you around. I could get free museum ticket.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Harvey, did you have another question, Gail? Sorry.
Yeah, that was it. New York and the TED Talk. That was it. Thank you.
Harvey, did you have a message, a question?
Well, actually, there were some people who raised their hands before me, but
Okay.
willing to.
That's very
speak now.
kind. Is it
I just
Jen,
had a-
surviving race peer? Is it Jen? You called Jen, surviving
Yes,
race
go
peer?
ahead.
Hey, Lorna. I
Hello.
got kicked off. I had to join up again.
That's all right.
Thank you so much for being here. Amazing recovery story. And I'm so proud of you
Oh, thank you.
for doing everything that you've done and everything you're doing and your work. And I can't wait to see your film. How exciting.
It's so exciting.
I also paint for the same reasons, you know.
Yeah.
And I also hear music, but only during Christmas. It's very
Oh,
interesting.
really?
Very, it's funny as shit, especially with the Boston Pops, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And I'm so impressed. I sent you private info to see if you could participate then in PRX's spring issue, which I'm working on right now, and I've got a May
Okay, I'll
1
look at that.
rollout. So
Thank you.
yeah, and thank you again. And Dan, thank you for bringing Lorna and sharing her with us. This is amazing.
That's nice. Thank you, Jen.
Thumbs up.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah. Thanks. Anne?
Hello, Lorna. I've seen your TED Talk, and I thank
Have
you for
you?
speaking.
I'm famous.
Yes. It's very nice. I like how you get participation from the audience, and
So
you're switching
important,
things
isn't
around.
it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I guess, well, for me, art has been very important too. Since I'm 18 now, I'm
Oh,
55.
good.
As part of the hospital experience, is always to be
Yes.
able to do that. And when you do come back to New York City,
Yes.
please come to Fountain House's gallery. We actually have a gallery where we sell people's art at good prices, and we get
Okay.
30% ourselves. I mean, no, they get 30%, we get 70%. So
Okay,
No, there's the whole professional thing here. We can
that's
maybe
really good.
sell some yours. Just a quick, uh, first a statement, then a question, or maybe two
Yeah.
questions. I'm going to probably be in England, it looks like, at the end of June, and visiting my friend Karen Mason. I don't know if you know her. She runs With You. It's
No,
a
I don't.
peer support thing. So, where in England are you? Can you say this online or not? If you can't,
Yeah.
it's okay.
I live
If
in
you-
Southeast England in
Okay.
Buckinghamshire.
Okay,
Yeah.
she's in St. Helens. So,
Okay.
but maybe we can work it out and maybe you can
Yeah.
meet Karen, and she is with a bunch of lived academic researchers who are all
Okay.
peers with lived experience, and also with the peers. She's done training all over England in peer support. So I'd love to connect you two.
Fortunately or unfortunately, in June, I'm running an Arts Council funded project
Oh,
which is working with the brain, mental health, creativity, and film. So I'm running events all over the country to look at this project I'm running. But you know what? If you go to my website, you can find my details and can send me a message if you like.
I'll do that. So my question, because
Yeah.
this is a spirituality group,
Sure,
how
sure.
does spirituality fit into your experiences and your recovery and your healing?
Well, really important. Now, I'm not religious. Um,
To me,
Maybe
spirituality is different than religion.
I know. I
So
just wanted to say
yeah,
that
yeah.
first. Yeah. But I think certainly when I was very unwell, I was very much enveloped by a sort of a dark spirit. And that would come to me in the form of the voices, who would tell me horrible things. And they completely sucked me up, or this dark spirit. So that was very much enveloping my whole existence. But I would say as I recovered and now, I think my spirit is more embodied, you know. It's more about embodiment and movement and creativity than a sort of spirit, if you know what I mean. So I think now my quest spiritually is to remain in my body and celebrate my body and challenge my body and kind of to stay here right now in very basic, simple, embodied blood, you know, sort of fleshy terms. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. I hadn't thought of it. You put me on
It
the spot.
makes perfect sense to me in my own personal experiences, Lorna. You're reflecting what I'm
Oh,
doing
really?
as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Harvey, patient
Thank you.
Harvey.
Yes,
Not,
thank you. Oh, that's funny that you should mention patient. I'm working on something with love is patient, love is kind from
oh, God.
1 Corinthians.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. And so
Well,
patience is
that's
definitely
quite
something
amazing.
that I practice a lot. Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah.
Because you can't be kind if you're not patient. At least that's my
I'm very
feeling.
impatient, but I'm very in that my kind of like, you know, character is to be very impatient. But to tell you honest with you, I've had to kind of learn how to be patient over the years.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Life will teach it to you if you're willing to listen.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you would gift us with one of your works and a little description about how it came about.
My paintings, you mean, or my artwork?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I painted well, one time I was in hospital. I don't have it to hand, so you just have to imagine it. I painted it in drew it. I was in hospital and very, very unwell. No one understood me, and all I had was my art materials, really. And I was on the floor of my room, a small room, and I was just drawing, scratching at this piece of paper, just drawing and trying to draw my hallucinations, which were like, it felt like barbed wire was being wrapped around my neck, and it was lubricated by a barbed wire with like really oily, greasy, dripping oil, like messy barbed wire dripping around my body. And then someone was pulling the barbed wire tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and asphyxiating me. You can imagine that. I don't want you to imagine that, but you just very quickly imagine that, then stop imagining it. So that was my experience. And I could physically feel that as a tactile sense, you know. And so I was drawing that, and I was drawing this picture of the barbed wire with dripping oily, greasy lubricant and all the crosses and all the just drawing it really detailed way. And a doctor walked past my room. He looked around the door and said this in my TED talk, and sorry to repeat it, but it's quite important. Sorry about that. There are more artworks, but this is important. Anyway, he looked around my door and he said, "Are you all right, Lorna?" And I said, I didn't say anything. He looked at my picture and he looked at it and he looked at it and he said, I think I know what your experience is by looking at this picture. And I said, "Oh, thank you." And he said, "Yeah, I think you've got schizoaffective disorder. And I also think you need to take this amount of olanzapine and this amount of whatever other medication I was on at the time." So suddenly, the doctor had seen me by looking at my picture. And not only that, but they then went and put painting and art on my list of medication as part of my care plan. So then that was completely transformative, because this was the days before social prescribing or arts and health or creative health, these new movements that have just started around in the UK. I'm not sure about the US, but where art is really connected to health. It was before that. And it was a transformative moment for me. I mean, that wasn't the right diagnosis, but it was useful at the time. Eventually I had a different diagnosis, but that diagnosis at that moment in my journey was very helpful. And he got that particularly by looking at my picture. Yeah.
So you're mentioning of embodiment. Are you aware of people in the embodiment movement knowing that we have three brains, just not our head brain, but our heart brain and our gut brain or our pelvic
No, I
floor
didn't know that.
brain?
I think I might have heard of that briefly, but I haven't looked into that.
I would recommend it highly.
Okay, thank you.
The book that I'm studying right now that's bringing that subject up very well is by Philip Shepard. It's
Okay.
called Radical Wholeness.
Oh, that sounds nice. I'll look that up. Thank you, Harvey.
You're welcome. And thank you for presenting yourself today.
That's
Thank
all
you.
right. Enjoy it. Thank you. And Dan, hello.
Hello, Lorna. Oh man, what a story. All right, all right. So, Lorna,
Yeah.
now I was paying attention. I believe I was paying attention 100% because you mentioned when you fell off the horse,
Yeah.
your father he can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
And he saved your life.
Yeah.
But then later on, decades later,
Yeah.
you said, enough of my family, enough of them.
Yeah. Shall I tell you why? Because that's a really
Yes.
important point. Okay, so they knew me as the person I was before the head injury, and I was now a different person. So life became impossible because the only person they knew was the only person I couldn't know. So it wasn't really their fault necessarily, but they treated me as the person they knew, but I'd become a different person. I was deeply unwell, but I felt alienated and lost. We fell out big time. It was very ugly. And also my mother became very codependent with me and then tried to control everything about me, because naturally she was extremely worried, about me with all these illnesses and everything. But she expressed it in a very difficult way. And it is complicated, but the essence of it was that life became unbearable with my family. And I felt that the only way I could get better from all these illnesses was to start afresh, completely start afresh, and make my own new life without anything to do with the life that I'd had before the head injury. So I took a break.
Is
And
there
I
any
said,
love lost between you guys?
now, no, well, the story gets better actually, because another complex thing. When I was in Paris, locked up in an ancient lunatic asylum, on literally in a white padded cell, tied to a bed, and even worse things happened, I thought to myself, I'm a prisoner. I must have one phone call. So I screamed and screamed, and someone came to my room, and I asked in pidgin French, could I have a telephone? And I rang my dad and I said, it's Lorna. I'm so sorry. I love you and I need you. And then my parents drove out to the hospital in Paris and rescued me. And they took me back to Cambridge, and I went to the hospital in Cambridge. And then I moved back to where my parents live, which is where I still live now, not with them, but near them. And I think now, I guess it is, we're just normal family get bickering, it's just normal, But they're very old and they will never change, because some people never change. I can't live the way they live, but I do love them. Does that answer your question? Yes. Andrew.
Hi. So I'm a big fan of the French philosophers myself. I love
Ooh.
Sartre. I recently reread Camus' The Stranger, of course. Have
Yes.
you read Celine's Journey to the End of the Night?
No, I haven't read that.
That's a good one I'd recommend.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, during the end of the night, Celine was talking about how people are afraid of the night. And he was saying, I think he calls it journey to the end of the night because it's like a journey to people's greatest fears. I think
Yeah.
part of what he's saying, people's greatest fears, is a lot of the lies people tell the world and tell themselves. So that really gave me some insight into life. Because I think it's true. A lot of times people really do lie to themselves, they lie to the world, and people are afraid to confront stuff like that. So anyway,
Lying to themselves.
yeah, I think it's a real thing, you know? Anyway, I was just wondering about books by French authors that you could recommend. I mean, of course, I read the Sartre, I read the Camus, I'm doing Celine, fiction or nonfiction. Can you recommend that help you out?
Yeah. So what are you interested in, philosophy or literature?
Both.
Both. Okay. I would try and read Gilles Deleuze, and do you know Deleuze and Guattari? Anyway, they've written a book called What is Philosophy? That's a good one to
What,
read. Deleuze,
really,
Deleuze.
what is philosophy? Okay.
And Guattari, they wrote a book called What is Philosophy? I would say Merleau-Ponty writes a. Do you like art? Obviously, you like art. Obviously, but you should never presume anything, should you? Merleau-Ponty writes amazing. Foucault. Have you read any
Oh,
Foucault?
oh,
Yeah,
Pendulum. Remember that? Foucault's
yeah,
Pendulum. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know where to stop actually.
Hmm. How about literature? Can you recommend a French
Yeah, I'm
novel?
just trying to
That's,
think what it's called. Pas pu saisir la mort. You can't keep hold of death.
you can't keep hold of death. I like that.
Yeah, look up that.
All right, thank you very much. I just know philosophy's helped me a lot in life
No.
too.
I've
I
just
mean,
sort of thought of another one. It's not Pas pu saisir la mort. Is an artwork by Sophie Calle. But tous les hommes sont mortels. All men are mortal. Look that one up. That is a story about a man who is supposedly immortal, and he never dies, and he lives through the ages. And what a nightmare that is.
sounds fascinating. I just know philosophy has helped me a lot in my life,
Oh,
especially when I
good.
was younger. I
Yeah.
know I was going through a lot, like emotionally. I was very
Yeah.
depressed. At one point, I was hearing voices. I was going through a lot, you
Oh,
know? I
yeah.
just know that reading helped me so much. And at
Yeah.
one point, I was pretty isolated. I didn't like being around people very much. I didn't always like
Oh,
people very much. But I always had my books, you know?
books.
And
Yeah.
then as I go into a book, you know, when it's a particularly interesting book that really connects with you, and the philosophy is just
Yeah.
something that just touches you and makes sense to you, that just really helped me cope with a lot. And it gave me
Yeah.
stuff to think about. And I think like reading all those books, thinking about all those words from all these brilliant philosophers
Yeah.
really helped me cope and helped me get through hard times. Because instead of focusing on all the negative stuff that was going through my life, I was able to focus on the book and the philosophers. And I thought about what they were thinking and what they were expressing through their words. I just thought that was very, very helpful. Philosophy may have like saved my life basically.
Do you
So
look
I
up?
mean,
Sorry, I just interrupting you because that's a very bad thing to do. But I'm just saying it. Just thought it's just come to me. Look up Merleau-Ponty. It's called The Visible and the Invisible.
give me a moment when I get
It's a
down.
philosophy book, but it's about art, but it's also about being and existence and the intertwining of the mind and the body.
Awesome, fantastic. I definitely will do that. I'll look into
Yeah.
those books. I recommend, I mean, he's very controversial because of some things he did, but Celine wrote this really cool book called Journey to the End of the Night, which is very dark,
Yeah,
but
I looked it
maybe
up.
you like it. I mean, there's one thing, I mean, a lot of people might not like it, but I'm going to say it, and I can say in front of you, I can share. I mean,
Yeah.
at one point, he was talking about how his friend was trying to was talking about killing somebody, right? He was
Yeah.
like, I was against it, not because I'm more moral than anybody else, because I was afraid we get caught. And I thought that was pretty insightful. I still a lot of
Yeah,
times
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
coming back to what I was saying, how Celine, I think he's talking a lot about the greatest fears of people lying to themselves. And
Yeah.
people like lie to themselves sometimes. They think they're a good person and they do good things, but they do good things because they're afraid they're gonna get caught. And if they knew they
Yeah.
were gonna not get caught, they would have gotten away with it. So I got a whole bunch of books to read. So thank you.
That's all right. Thank you.
And also, I was wondering one
sorry.
question. I was hoping I can email you about something.
Yeah, sure. Go to my website, which is lornacollins.com, and you can find details there.
Thank you so much.
That's all right. We have a few questions in the chat, actually. The medication that's helped me. So I'm on olanzapine, lithium, aripiprazole, sertraline, levothyroxine, blah, 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 blah. You know, quite a lot of stuff. It's a combination of two antipsychotics and mood stabilizer. Lithium's a major mood stabilizer, antidepressant, and then the other things are to do with the side effects of the other medication. So a lot of stuff, but it kind of works. It's just like, you know, got to do what you got to do. So my hallucinations are not only visual. Do you you feel people touching my brain? So like, yes, it is vibrationally, but also I feel the hands in my head, like palpating my brain. It's a horrible sensation. That's it. Any more questions? Oh yeah, there, Jen. Yes, yes, yes.
Hey, I was going to ask you, who are your favorite artists over the years, in this century, in the last 2 centuries, actually?
Kandinsky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jackson
Nice,
Pollock.
nice. Oh, yeah. Do you have
Sophie
artwork on
Calle.
your website?
No, I don't.
I'm sorry, because Sophie, what?
Sophie Calle, she's a French artist.
Ah, cool. Okay.
I don't have them on my website, but I have written about them, which might be on my website. I can't remember.
Where can we see your artwork?
On my website. You can see some of
On
it.
your website. Okay, perfect. You're painting. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Anne?
Can you talk about the UK's system of mental health? You said something about that they have
Yeah,
some
so we
art
have
piece.
NHS trusts, depending on where you live. For each area of England has a different NHS trust. And we also have mental health teams within the trusts. But it's very patchy. I've had amazing help, but I've also had no help at times. It's very patchy. It depends where you live. It's a postcode lottery, so it's luck really. But now, I mean, I still have mental health care because I still have, you know, these conditions, and also because I'm on such a lot of medication, and I have a care coordinator, you know, who manages my mental health care. So it can be really good in the UK, but it's not got a good reputation. We don't have to pay for it, so that's a huge bonus, isn't it? But many people have to go private to get the help that they really need, because it's so hard to find it within the NHS. I think I've been extremely lucky. I've been unlucky at times, but I've had help when I've really needed it. Yeah.
Just to follow up quickly, I've also heard that sometimes doctors will prescribe gyms, and you can do that in England. They'll support that as part of
That's
mental
called
health
social
care.
prescribing. So it's
So
called
what
social
is that?
prescribing.
What is
Social
that?
prescribing is a big thing in England and the UK. It's a question, you get prescribed by your GP to go to do a community activity, or to go and do something that's good for your health rather than take medication. If you just look up social prescribing, you can see it. It's quite a big thing over here. Kira?
Hi, yeah, I'm wondering what you like, sort of a main, sort of motto of the United States is pursuit of happiness, which I've thought was very unhealthy. That's just my opinion. I don't know if a lot of people feel that same way. And then, right, like a main motto of, the UK is like, I guess, keep calm and carry on. I mean, you had said things that, like, so
Yeah.
to me, that neither is healthy, but to me, I think that the UK motto is healthier than the pursuit of happiness, but I might be wrong. That could just be the grass is greener. Do you have an
Oh, I
opinion
don't know.
about
I mean, I
that?
think keep calm and carry on is very traditional and stiff upper lip. Have you heard of that phrase? You're very
Right.
British. Stiff upper lip and grin and bear it and just carry on, carry on. And I'm trying very much to sort of move away from that personally, because I think if you need to feel, I think we all need to have feelings and to express and process and deal with them in our own way, and to be supported to do that. And also, I think it's very important to have boundaries and actually to know where to know and understand and express when you need to say no. Actually, enough is enough. I can't do anymore. And I feel great respect for someone who can do that. Whereas, say, the sort of grin and bear it and keep calm and carry on, just carry on. It seems a bit, old fashioned to me, really. But the pursuit of happiness, I think we should all be happy. If I think it's a lovely thing to be happy, but it's complex and difficult, and it's never going to happen all the time, is it? So both of them are, problematic. But I think you need to kind of find your own way, really, find your own, message to fight for. Jen?
I was curious, I know you're a world athlete and you've had your things with your body, but you're resilient and you're very strong physically, I'm sure. I'm curious because you said you're a triathlete. What does your daily training look like? And do you ever compete or what?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a bit crazy, really. I am. I run in the middle of the night.
Especially being on all that meds. How do you run
Yeah,
on that stuff?
because it gives me energy. That's what it does.
Gives you energy.
The hardest thing is to start, and once you start, you don't have to stop. We just carry on.
And you run at night. Do you
It's
work at night also?
invigorating. The running and cycling and swimming is so invigorating.
Yeah. Are you running on a standstill, on a
No,
static
I have a head
machine, and
torch.
also oh, excellent.
When I go out with my
Very
dog,
cool.
Wilby and I go running most mornings.
Very nice. How much do you run every week? I'm
I would
curious, about
normally go
50
for a 5
miles?
mile. I normally go for a 5 mile run. Like basic run is 5 miles. And then so I do
Wow.
that to about 3 times a week. One long run, 10 miles.
Wow.
Cycle because I hate cycling as little as possible because I hate it. Swimming, I usually
Mm.
go once a week swimming, swim like, a mile or something.
Wow.
2 miles. And then I
Gosh.
usually have one
Whew.
race a week or once every 2 weeks.
Wow. Thank you. That's incredible to me. I'm just trying to get to run again. I used to be an athlete myself, and
Can
after
you walk?
COVID and long-term
Can you
COVID,
walk?
can I what?
Can you
Yes,
walk?
I'm fully mobile. So I
Okay.
walk a lot on the property here,
The
and
walk is a great start. It's a great start to
yeah.
this.
Okay.
Brilliant start.
All right, cool. Yeah, I dream of running again, but it's so hard. My body's gotten so weak since COVID, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, but I'm
Just
getting
be
there.
kind to yourself. Oh, some more
Yeah, I
hands.
am.
Hello.
Thank you.
Harvey.
Yeah, in answer to what Kira was speaking of, historians say that pursuit of happiness was really a second thought. It was originally pursuit of property, and then they thought that was a little too general, so they turned it to pursuit of happiness. But actually, I have a thing about happiness anyway. If you look up the word happy, you'll find that it comes from the root hap, and hap means luck. So when you're saying you're happy, you're basically saying you're lucky. And I would prefer the word joy, actually, which is a much more powerful one, I think, which is one that's unconditional rather than conditional.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Harvey. I agree. Did we have a question from Michelle?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment about the fitness. I'm 62 years old and I've been weight training and doing cardio for years. And I actually had a bad foot last year where I had to wear a boot on my foot for about 5 months. And
Right.
I'm back to my cardio and weight training again.
Amazing.
I'm also on medication. I take Seroquel, clonazepam, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So medication doesn't do anything to me personally as far as my fitness concerns.
Yeah.
spirituality, my meditation, like it doesn't affect anything. So I just wanted to add on to what you were saying.
Yeah,
because
thank you, Michelle. That's really powerful and very important. Thank you for that boost, actually. That's really good. And good and keep going. It's fantastic, you know. Yeah, brilliant. Tiffany?
Hey, Lorna, I'm going to thank you for your talk. So many ideas, and I honestly have no idea where to start, but to acknowledge your journey. And you have, when I listen to you, you can humble brag,
Humble
you know,
brag.
humble brag, like you such an inspiration.
Oh.
And I really appreciate the way you have embraced this journey and made it have to deal with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
know. I like what you all are talking about with happiness and how Harvey says joy, because I can see how moving through as you have, that's joy. It's taking what the world throws, what life throws, and again, making it deal with you. There's a power in that. I thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thank you. It's been great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll step back, see if any of the quiet folks down here, Daniel, Aisha, anyone down here, Miss Sandy, any hands to raise up here from you folks, Angela?
No, I don't feel too well, so I'm not going to talk a lot.
Yes,
Thank you for coming, Sandy.
You're welcome. Thank you. I love your story.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, formulating a question is a bit. I'll stand back and see if anyone else. Anything else? Yeah, I'll let you have your floor back, Lorna. You were doing well at facilitating.
Oh.
I get to sit back with my coffee.
Yeah, good idea.
Hello, Lorna.
Hello.
Now, Tiffany and Cecilia, don't entirely sit back. Don't leave it all to Lorna, you guys, you crazy guys. Okay, so Lorna, when you were interviewed for the first time at Cambridge,
Yeah.
and you said you had this brilliant theory connecting adversity with genius or something like this.
Yeah.
What can you tell us? What did you tell these people at Cambridge that so wowed them?
I said, well, it's very technical and small because they like technical and very small things. I said that Deleuze and Guattari, these French philosophers I was recommending earlier, they write a theory called schizoanalysis, and it's about using the schizophrenia as a critical tool to break open psychoanalysis as a problematic notion. And they use like the model from schizophrenics and the anorexic and the drug addict and the alcoholic, and they take all these sort of notions of a mental illness and they posit them into a philosophical argument, and then they do it really badly. Okay, they do it really badly. And I know that because I've experienced some of these mental illnesses, so I can have first-hand knowledge about the terrible attitudes they have in their philosophy. Okay, so I went in there and I said, right, I have lived experience of schizophrenia and psychosis and eating disorder. And I have a new theory about how these experiences can be used within French philosophy to critique the way these French philosophers have abused them, basically. And then I said, I also know how the link between making art and providing a restorative sense of being in the world. And I wanted to connect art and aesthetics with contemporary French thought, and to use the aesthetic experience of engaging with an artwork or making an artwork to critique philosophy. So my method was to use art as a method of critiquing philosophy, which hadn't been done at the time. So I had lots of different ideas. Did any of that make sense? I'm sorry if it was a bit nonsense. Did that make sense, Dan?
Some of it did and some of it didn't,
It didn't.
because it is so abstract, man. But Lorna, I thank you for attempting to explain this complexity.
I've written a book about some of it.
Well, all right, then you must send me that book, and I will be further. I'll have a little bit more of a notion, probably.
Okay. I can send you a better book, which is fiction. It's much more fun. Okay, Tiffany.
I like that when you brought up, because I was just speaking with my daughter about happiness yesterday. And what I was explaining to her from where I stand is that if you're constantly seeking happiness and you're not getting that stimulation, I wonder if that's how people end up on drugs and alcohol, habitually and chronically, because of the constant seeking of that, rather than accepting that being at peace with life is sometimes somber. Sometimes there's a stiff upper lip involved. And then understanding the joy that brings of making it put up with you, And one time at my church, we had a shaman there, and he told us to look at God as an artist. And then I had to think of it from my own painting experiences, how, hey, you make a little no right there, you just put a little something over it, put a happy cloud right there, and move forward with that. So I wonder if, as we move through life and keeping calm and carrying on, understanding that point of the artistry of life, and just paint a happy tree over that situation from a realistic standpoint, though, not from a, from that point where you own it, and then go to that part, that the seed part of our soul, that part of ourself that can plant new seeds and grow new fields and things like that.
And I think when you paint something, it doesn't have to be representational, it doesn't have to look like anything, but it can still express what you want it to be, So it can be a different kind of reality, but it still expresses your own wholeness.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not the vision that you had when you sat down at the canvas, but just continuing on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne?
Well, now I'm going to sit back because Harvey was before me.
Harvey?
Okay, thank you, Anne. I spent a lot of my life hearing Harvey is too sensitive. Harvey is so sensitive. Harvey is too serious, and I fought against it all my life with this idea that no, you can't be too sensitive. You can't be too serious about life. And this book that I mentioned to you earlier just nailed it for me in such a powerful way. It's not about sensitivity. We have to be as sensitive as we possibly can be. It's just we need to know how to ground it.
Yeah.
And that's the trick. But be sensitive, be serious, be in whatever you're feeling enthusiastically and completely and passionately, but learn how to ground it is really the thing. And I've spent years doing that, so that's been very good. But I love when an author writes something that I can hang my idea on.
That's lovely. Thank you.
And
yes, I would just say I'm in agreement with you, Harvey. I think you're totally right. Yes, and I love it when you read something and you can really empathize with what they're saying, and it connects with you on a very deeper level. Yeah. Anne?
Yes, my question had to do with, and I'd have to say too, as a teenager growing up reading those philosophers, also in French, I kind of get what you're saying, I think, because I was so interested in that type of thinking.
Okay.
I love Simone de Beauvoir as well, and Marie
Yes.
Kelly, thank you for mentioning her.
Yeah.
So my question has to do with if you have any theories on intelligence and learning and these states, these huge awareness states that we get into. I was just speaking with a friend. I had been quote unquote psychotic, less big extreme state in Japan. And for 2 weeks, I was just taking everything. My Japanese I was there 30 years ago. Apparently, I picked up such a good accent. They still think it's wonderful today, 30 years later. Do you have any theories about our brains capacity and these quote unquote illnesses and how we learn and intelligence faster, things like that?
Well, people say to me, I guess I don't know what I'm like now compared to what I was before, because I don't know that person. But she was clearly apparent, she was clearly very good at school, so she must have been quite intelligent. But it's a different person now. So and whether that, I mean, I definitely think the brain is it's a muscle, and it can be changed, and it's malleable. So, if you I've also dehydrated my brain drastically through malnutrition, and in those times been unable to think at all, or have any kind of concentration, etc. But I've recuperated and re-nourished my brain. So now I'm in a situation whereby it is probably at its peak. But it's different, and the brain changes over time. When I was at Cambridge, I was reading 3 books a day, 3 philosophy books a day. So and I wouldn't before, probably wouldn't do that right now. So it's a different kind of, now I'm more creative. So it's different, but I do think the brain changes. Everyone's brain changes over time, depending on your physical health, what you're eating and your nutrition, and also what you're doing with your life. So I don't think I have an answer to that. I'm just saying the brain changes anyway.
Yeah, and also just a quick question about hormones. Do you notice any
That's
difference?
true.
Anything
Yeah, I don't
about
really know very
hormones?
much about hormones. I don't really know very much about. I should actually. I haven't really thought about too much about it, but maybe I should look into that. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, that's not a very satisfactory answer to your comment.
Yes, it is. You're telling the truth. I really am satisfied with the truth.
Yeah. There are no hands.
All right, there's no hands. However, there have been some people in the group who choose to remain silent. Now, I will ask you to break the silence. Angela. Oh, Daniel, go ahead, Dan.
Yes, you
Hello.
motivated me, Dan. First of all, thank you for coming, and you have quite a brilliant story there. In the beginning of your talk, I had this reaction. I said, I'm so furious with the medical profession, particularly psychiatrically, for misleading people and making people go on an unhealthy path rather than guide them the way they should. We have to end up deciding for ourselves what to do, which is great, but they really should be the pushers of health, not the pushers of bad health. I had the other comment I have is, I know everybody has a daily struggle, and mine is to not to continue to think about what I have done and what I do have and who I am, not what's missing, not what's not functioning well.
That's a good idea.
So I wanted to ask you, what do you think is your biggest struggle as you get up every day? What's your, biggest issue still?
I would say it's probably I guess I'm very much always trying to sort of striving to do more things. And I'm always on the go doing stuff, whether it's mostly physically, but also mentally, in terms of relationships and people around me, but mostly about myself and my body and my mind. Always trying to sort of elongate, like make it bigger, and not so bigger, but wider, and do more stuff, you know. And also trying to start doing what I've been trying to do since I finished my PhD 12 years ago. Still trying to do that, which is the Making Sense project, but not just a book, but also a practice around the world. And I am now starting that, so that's very good. But I'd say the main problem probably I'm issue focusing on is probably being still, because I don't really I'm not really very still.
All right, now let's see. Helen, I think you wanted to speak. Yes, Helen, yes? Helen Newman. Yes, unmute yourself, please.
Mute. Okay, now I'm unmuted. Well, I'm sorry that I was not paying attention to all along due to different reasons. There's no time to go through it, but I was on the meeting and I know that this is this beautiful artist sharing. And I like very much what she said at the end now here. You know, the challenge is to stay still. So to stay still is not so much do, but rather than be. You know, to be in the moment, to appreciate with gratitude the moment of staying alive. So I very much appreciate it. I kind of tete-a-tete with you with that.
Oh, good. Thank you, Helen. Thank you. It's nice to connect.
I also love the arts. I think they calm the mind.
Yeah,
But I am not doing. I am more like listening to different programs that
nice.
can, you know, instruct and people sharing their art and lectures on that. I am more into that. Thank you.
Angela.
Yeah, I'm just glad that you managed to come across medications that work for you.
Yeah.
Some of us are not that lucky, even after years and years.
Took me a long time.
Thank you for sharing.
That's all right. Thank you. Harvey.
Yes, so you just mentioned your PhD, and I just wanted to catch up on that. Do you feel like now you have proven your PhD?
Oh, totally. Yes, I certainly have. I know it works.
That it works, that it works for you and that it will work for others.
Yes.
Wonderful. That's a great achievement and
Thank
a
you.
great gift to the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now in honor, in homage or homage or hamagi to Lorna's TED Talk, there was a section of the TED Talk where people moved around. Now we're in a Zoom, but I highly recommend that we all just sort of like shake our limbs and shake our heads and shoulders.
Great idea.
And get the energy moving a little bit.
That's a good idea.
All right. Oh, actually, Jenny Schneider, you were here for a while. Do you have any comments or questions?
I was just wondering, how much did your art help you?
It saved my life many times.
In
Always.
what way?
Because it helped me express the darkest things I was experiencing. It helped me convey them and communicate the things I was experiencing to other people. And it built me a practice that allowed me to stop self-harming.
Oh, Jenny, you mute. Oh, go ahead.
How you started to do the art?
I don't know. It's something innate in me. I don't know how I started. Sorry. I just don't know.
No, it's okay because I want to start doing art too, but I don't know how, like how to
Oh, what I mean is just get a piece of paper and start scribbling and see what the scribble looks like. See if you can recognize anything in your scribble. Then just
It
build
doesn't
them.
have to be like a Picasso.
No.
Yeah.
Just draw a circle, see what happens. Then you can call that circle a mandala and go from there. Look it up. Mandala.
Mandala?
Mandala, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anne, go ahead, Anne. Come
Yes.
on.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was waiting to be called on. I want to be proper with the British people. What you just said, Lorna, is that you were able to express what you felt and what was going on to you, your experience, and how interesting it is to those of us who express to words our experience to doctors, to medical systems who can't hear us. And that one doctor heard you through the art. That is just really beautiful that something touched him somehow in a way that the words didn't touch him. I just want to bring that up as a
Exactly it.
that what you said.
That's exactly it. Thank you. Very powerful moment. Yeah.
It's just the concepts in art can be very healing, even if you don't just studying art and understanding the concept of the mandala is very healing, internally, things like that. So I'll pass it on to Dan, who's gonna.
Well, yes, I guess we should, Tiffany, you can help if you want. We have like 4 minutes left. So I was just going to ask Lorna to close us out in the next 3 to 4 minutes with something, well, no pressure, but whatever your spirit moves you. I know are you an atheist, Lorna? It's okay. It's all right.
I don't know. I haven't decided. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we welcome atheists here
I don't
too.
think so. I don't know. I don't know. I don't tie me down.
Can I use the word spirit if the spirit moves
call
you,
me
Lorna?
that. That'll do.
All right. So we have there's a spirit. Lorna has a spirit.
Yeah.
And Lorna, let's hear what your spirit has to say in the next 3 minutes.
Okay, so I think everyone, not necessarily now, but should go away and take a piece of paper and a pen or any kind of writing implement or painting implement and draw a circle. And then see what happens inside that circle. It can be anything. It doesn't have to look like a picture or a particular form. It doesn't have to represent anything, but you just